So earlier this week, we talked about the classification of stories and where stories fall into based on their length. And I guess we're each also supposed to talk about how long we usually write things. I've done, including fan fiction, I've done a couple, short stories, I guess. I think I've done a couple, novel-length stuff that's fan fiction. And as far as, original fiction, I've written a story that's over 100,000 words, so that's definitely a novel. And I've done two other stories that I believe were novel length, but I haven't typed them up, so I guess I'd just have to type it up and work on that if I wanted to know. And then I'm working on another one that I'm also fairly sure is going to be novel length when it's finished. And as far as everything else, I guess I would have to check my fanfiction account to know for sure all of that stuff. But one thing, if you want, okay, sorry, let me start over. Just take a deep breath. That awkwardness didn't happen. It didn't happen. One way people like to break into publishing world as an author is to get their short stories published, or to take part of their full-length novel and get it published as a short story. Now, it's already been said that short stories can be up to, I think it was 7,000 words, or maybe it was 7,500, but if you want to get your short story published, the easiest way to do that is instead of in book anthologies, you'd have to go to literary magazines, and most literary magazines have word limits on their stories that are 5,000 or lower. The most common one I saw was 4,500. So that's definitely something to take into account when writing your short stories. Another is to take into account the different styles. You can't necessarily do something that's emotionally gripping. If you're writing a short story, most likely it can't just be for the enjoyment of the story. It has to be some sort of social commentary, or a metaphor for this thing or that thing, which I guess definitely falls into social commentary. But so when you're picking out part of your novel or whatever to get published, you do need to sort of think about that. You need to read other people's short stories, not just other people's modern short stories. You need to read classic short stories. Gogol is definitely a master of it. I'm taking a whole class on Russian short stories right now, and they're all pretty amazing. Okay, it turns out I really like Gogol. And short story format is definitely very different than novel-length stuff, because you can't really have subplots. You can have I guess that depends on how you define a subplot, because I usually define it as something that doesn't start at the same time as your main plot and doesn't end either doesn't start or doesn't end at the same time as your main plot. But a lot of novel-length stuff, you'll have an emotional plot line that comes to a head at the same time as an external plot line, and that's definitely harder to do in a short story. You could still do it, but you'd have to be very craftful. It would seem to be very skin and bones, or you'd have to tie them very closely together. And I do think that short story, for me, short stories are definitely harder than novel-length stuff, because when I write something novel-length, I definitely can look back and be you know what, I'm going to change this, or I can go through and be you know what, I'm going to add this. And with a short story, like if I have that idea, I have to hold it off and do like a sequel or something, and then it ends up turning into a chapter, and then it ends up developing into a novel, and it's just, I'm a novel person. So that's my take on length. And next week, I guess we're supposed to talk about NaNoWriMo, and I'll tell you about the Nerdfighteria fundraising team. Bye!